DJ Scream, heavy in the streets.
We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood. We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood.
Hood rich.
Get it out the mud.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And welcome back. Welcome back. It's been a while since we've had any main course or appetizers on this podcast. Hadn't been a lot of main course because there hasn't been a lot of Saints news, but it's starting to brew. It's starting to brew. And Monday, when the tampering period starts, and then officially when free agency starts on Wednesday, there'll be a lot of news, even though there's already some brewing. But also, you know, we had those two pay-per-view or premium live events, premium events in the UFC when we had UFC 324 and 325 pretty much like back to back. Just kind of what was there, just like a week in between them, and then we haven't had any premium live events since then. Had some fight nights and stuff kind of mixed in there, but didn't have been off for a little while. So I don't know if you guys have missed me, but if you haven't, I'm back anyways. But the thing that we need to point out, I'm sure that's the giant in the room, or the invisible man in the room, or I guess like the mockingbird in the room, whatever you want to call it. Definitely the issue that needs to be pointed out is the beard. The beard is gone. So the beard is gone. Went 6 months with it from September 1st to March 1st, and now it's off because it's starting to get hot where I'm at here in Arkansas. It's starting to get a little warm, you know. So the beard during the wintertime does a great job keeping the face warm, but also it feels really nice. That first splash of cold water on your face after having a beard for 6 months is that's an amazing feeling, and I just like the cool air on my face. But anyway, so that's enough of me, at least in regards to the appearances, our Showtime appearances. Let's get into what we're getting into here, because we're back. It took about a month. We're kind of a dead period, but you know, dead period, especially when it applies to an NFL team, is usually a positive during this time period, because usually not a lot of good stuff happens during the off-season dead period, and anytime before the draft and free agency and all that. So that was probably a positive. But anyways, before we get into those, that'll be probably next week. You know, maybe after the tampering period starts, and then maybe like around the first day of free agency. Sometime then we'll have some more Saints news. But before that, we have some appetizers for you, some more appetizers for you. And I'm talking UFC 326. That's UFC 326 Holloway versus Oliveira 2. So that's Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira 2. And that's coming up March 7th, 2026, which that's just this next Saturday coming up. And that should be, I think we've had a couple of these numbered cards here that have started. They've started on 8, and so it's 9 Eastern, 8 Central time. So they're an hour. They start an hour earlier, which is nice. You know, don't have to get upset about it being midnight, 1 in the morning, and then you stay up all the way to the main event and it being a bummer. You know, being a dud. So that's nice. And then it's at the T-Mobile Arena in Paradise, Nevada, United States. So that's Las Vegas. So let's see. Before we get into this, let's go over the prelims a little bit. There's not a lot. That's kind of the thing about this card. There's not a lot of good prelims in regards to like the early prelims. There's some notable names on the standard prelim, but nothing nothing too great, nothing that would be like, like fight night worthy, which we've had a couple of these uh, numbered cards to start the year. Like just their prelims would be good enough to be as good as some of these fight nights that we've had here recently. But yeah, so the prelims not amazing, but same with the main card. You don't have an official weight class title being defended on this card, so it's the BMF. It's kind of, I don't know. It's okay, I guess. It serves its purpose to be able to defend a belt, be able to defend something on a numbered card where otherwise you wouldn't. I guess you just kind of scrap this card and call it call this like a just like a really good main card. But but this card it's set up. You got Max Holloway, Charles Oliveira. Those are two of the greatest lightweights of all time. Probably no argument with anyone that those are probably future Hall of Famers. So you get that, but you just don't get the official lightweight belt being defended. But then you got matchups uh, uh, throughout the main card that are all they're all not the largest, not the biggest, like in name recognition. And we already kind of mentioned that there's a title not being defended, but they're matchups that are set up to be. They should be good fights, regardless of who's in the fights. The name recognition. But let me just mention some of the names that are on the prelims, and then we'll get into this main card and make some predictions. Uh, so we have so this is a standard preliminary card because there really isn't anyone too familiar on the early prelims, even to me. But the first fight on the early prelims, you got Cody Durden in the flyweight versus Nang Majing Gal, Nanjing Jarm Gal. I can't even say try. I'm not even going to attempt to say the last name, but you got Cody Durden. So that's a familiar name. Starting the standard prelims, and then the co-main event on the standard prelims, you have a middleweight bout between Dante Johnson versus Cody Brundage. So those are two familiar names, and then even the main event on the prelims, which this is why I'm kind of mentioning a couple of these names. Like this could be, I could see this as a fight night, which so that's decent enough, I guess. But for the main event on the prelims, you have a bantamweight bout between Cody Garbrandt versus Zanon Long. So definitely. I'm not so sure I'll be tuning in super early. I guess what is that? 4:30 Central Time is when the early prelim. I'm not sure I'll be tuning in necessarily that early for that, but definitely be interested to see how the early prelims start out, or the standard prelims, because those are some pretty good fights. Should be some good matchups there. All right, so let's see. I think yeah. Now we're gonna jump on to the main card and make our picks here. So this is UFC 326 Holloway versus Oliveira 2, and like we mentioned, that's Max Holloway, the champion, versus Charles Oliveira, the challenger for the BMF belt. So, anyways, so can I get a menu? And so the first fight on this card is a middleweight bout. So curtain jerkers from some serious knockout artists and some finishers in the middleweight division. And that's Gregory Rodriguez versus Bruno Ferreira. And these guys have already fought once. And if I'd have been, my memory is not the greatest, but if I'd have been reminded that these two had fought already, I probably wouldn't have remembered uh, that Bruno Ferreira actually knocked Gregory Rodriguez out. I think that was one of those fights where Gregory Rodriguez, the fight was playing out, pretty good early on in the first round, and then I guess he got drawn into just an all-out brawl and war and got caught and knocked out by Bruno Ferreira, the Hulk Bruno Ferreira, and that was back at UFC 283, January 21st, 2023, and that was at the 4:13 mark of the first round. So he couldn't, Gregory Rodriguez couldn't get out of the first round before he just threw all of his game plan out the windows and got in a brawl with Bruno Ferreira and got caught and knocked out. But since then, he's had a pretty nice winning streak since then. Uh, so he's 4-2 in his 4-1 in his last five fights, and 6-1 in his last uh, and 5-1 or 5-2. Yeah, 5-1 in his last six. Excuse me, in that. And then he's on currently a two-fight winning streak with a win over Jack Hermason, just a absolutely devastating knockout of him back in June of 2025, and then a unanimous decision win over Roman Kopylov back at UFC 322. But he's a great Gregory Rodriguez. He has a great Brazilian jiu-jitsu like black belt, but you hardly ever see it because he's just always looking to knock someone out, either get the knockout or get knocked out is what he's usually looking at. But in his 24 matches, he's had 18 wins and 6 losses. In the 18 wins, he has 11 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission, and 4 by decision. And then in the 6 losses, 4 of them have come by knockout, 0 by submission. So that shows you like he never really uses it, but he can use it to help in his own defense, I guess. And then 2 losses. So shows you basically either he's going to win by knockout most likely, or he's going to lose by knockout. So there's usually in the majority of his fights, someone, whether it's him or his opponent, gets knocked out. And so his opponent is Bruno Ferreira. Like we said, we mentioned that fight back when he fought Gregory Rodriguez back in 2023, and he's had kind of a similar kind of record since then. So he's also would be considered, yeah, he would be also 4-1 in his last 5 fights. But also you could say, like I was trying to say earlier, he about Gregory Rodriguez trying to get it out a little bit smoother this time. You could also say he's 5-1 in his last 6, but he is on a 3-fight winning streak, and he's kind of a similar fighter to Gregory Rodriguez, and just in regards that he's a finisher, but he's gotten some submission stoppages, not just in the striking game, like he did Gregory Rodriguez 3 years ago, knocked him out, but he's on a 3-fight winning streak and had some submission victories in those fights. Armand Petrion, submission triangle armbar, and then Jackson McVeigh, submission armbar, and then he went to decision in his most recent fight with Marvin Vettori. So man, this is a tough fight, just because I feel as if I'm kind of leaning more towards Gregory Rodriguez, just because I'm a fan of him, just because of he gives me what I want most of the time from Gregory Rodriguez. He either gets knocked out, or he's freaking knocks someone out to the point you got to go check on him afterward. That the knockout's so devastating. But yeah, seeing these two face off to each other in post fight weigh-ins and standoffs and things like that, Gregory Rodriguez just looks like he's in 2 weight classes higher than Brandon Ferreira, which obviously it didn't matter in their first fight, because Ferreira was the one that knocked RoboCop out. But I think if Gregory Rodriguez can come in and have maybe a more skilled plan, and maybe not throw it out the window early on and try to get into a street fight, a bar fight, and just throwing punches all crazy, I think he can get the win over Brandon Ferreira. Just maybe pick your shots a little bit, and maybe pick your opportunities a little bit better in trying to get the knockout from Bruno Ferreira, because I feel like that's kind of what Gregory Rodriguez is always doing. He's like looking for the knockout or nothing, even though, we're talking about the knockout, but he has such a great Brazilian jiu-jitsu game that he could go to as well. But Bruno Ferreira's got the submission game as well, as we just mentioned. But in this curtain jerker for UFC 26 middleweight bout between Gregory Rodriguez versus Bruno Ferreira. I'm going with Gregory Rodriguez to win this, and I think he's going to get his get back fight. He's going to get his revenge over Bruno Ferreira, and that revenge wouldn't be quite as good if it's just a decision, a split decision. So we're going to get Gregory Rodriguez. RoboCop's going to get his full revenge over Brennan Ferreira. So he's going to knock Brennan Ferreira out. And we'll say it makes it to the second round. So we feel that Gregory Rodriguez didn't have a bad game plan or get too crazy to where or actually make it to the second round. So a knockout by Gregory Rodriguez in the second round. All right, then. Now then, on to lightweight bout. Second fight on the card. We have a lightweight bout between two longtime UFC veterans and some older fighters, but a lightweight bout between Drew Dober versus Michael Johnson. And I think for the lightweight division, I wanted to say, I think I heard this somewhere, but I'm not so sure about it. They said something about Drew Dober having the most knockouts in the lightweight division, and then and Michael Johnson has the most knockdowns in the lightweight division. But anyways, it's a similar type of similar type of stat or record for those two. Definitely, Drew Dober's been getting knocked out quite often recently. So Drew Dober, I guess he's known for being a hard hitter, but has a wrestling ability too. And he's kind of one of those fighters. He's an older fighter, just like Michael Johnson. He's 37, and then I think Michael Johnson's 38 or 39. So you got two veteran fighters. This isn't a type of fight that's going to lead either one of them to a championship or anything, but it should be a good scrap between two really veteran and skilled and longtime UFC fighters. But Drew Dober, we're just mentioning, he's had a little bit of issues with getting knocked out himself, and he's kind of the complete opposite of Bruno Ferreira and Gregory Rodriguez I was talking about earlier, because he is just 2-3 in his last five fights, and he is 2-4 in the last, if you go back to the last six, where he was knocked out by Matt Freebola TKO, but that was back May 6, 2023. But since then, he's had one fight. He's on a one-fight winning streak over Kyle Prepolek. TKO, knees and punches over him. But before that, he was on a 3-fight losing streak. Started with Renato Moicano, and then got knocked out doctor stoppage by Jan Silva, and then TKOs by Manuel Torres. And in his 44 matches, he's had 28 wins and with 15 losses, with 15 knockouts. With the 28 wins, he's had 15 knockouts. So I wouldn't argue the fact too much that I heard that fact somewhere, that he's got the most knockouts in the lightweight division. But 15, that's quite a bit, even though those aren't all in the UFC. And then he has 6 wins by submission, 7 wins by decision, and then in the 15 losses, he's been knocked out 4 times, been submitted 4 times, and 7 losses by decision, and then 1 no contest. And so he's fighting Michael Johnson, who even at 39 years old feels like he's had like a little bit of a career resurgence of his own, because he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, and he is on a 3-fight winning streak currently, with a knockout KO punch mixed in there over Ottoman as that Aziatar back at a fight night back in December of 2024, and he's a similar fighter to Drew Dober. Maybe not quite as powerful with the knockout power, but definitely a guy that has a ground game, but prefers to strike and can get the knockouts as well, but probably better in regards to can go the distance and can take a lot of beating and maybe has a little bit better of a chin maybe, but probably not as good of a submission defense though. But he has 43 matches. I think Drew Dober we just went over had 44, so that's a lot of fights, So 43 matches with 24 wins and 19 losses. So man, you don't see that too often where you got fighters that are almost their career records are almost like at 500. But like I said, Michael Johnson's kind of had a bit of a career resurgence, being on a 3-fight winning streak currently. But in his 24 wins, he has 10 knockouts, 10 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission, and 12 wins by decision. And then in the 19 losses, he has 3 losses by knockout, 9 losses by submission, and 7 losses by decision. So I think I'm more of a fan than any. I like this scene. This seems like a really equal matchup. Seems like a very even matchup between the two. But I feel like I'm kind of as a fan of either one of these fighters. I feel as if I'm kind of leaning more towards the Michael Johnson side and pick of this fight. So also on the fact that Michael Johnson has had see 19 of his 14 career fights have either ended with him winning by decision or losing by decision. So regardless of who wins this fight, I think it's gonna go to decision. But like I said, just the fan in me is wanting to pick Michael Johnson. So in the second fight on the UFC 365 card, lightweight bout between Drew Dober versus Michael Johnson. I'm picking Michael Johnson here, and I think he's gonna win this by decision. All right, but it could be a split decision even. It could be a close fight. All right, now then on to the third fight on this card. We have a bantamweight bout between Rob Font versus the young up and coming superstar, you could maybe argue, in Raul Rosa Jr. And this, if nothing else, this is a big step up in competition for Raul Rosa Jr. So this is one of his first ranked opponents in top 15. So Rob Font is number 13 currently. And I don't know, this fight feels like it's maybe kind of set up for Rob Font to be like a gatekeeper, maybe even a stepping stone a little bit for Raul Rosa Jr., which I feel like that would definitely catapult Raul Rosa Jr. probably into the top 15 with his rankings, and him being matched up probably in his next fight, probably against top 10, and then maybe even a title shot after him. That's how Rob Font losing could catapult Raul Rosa Jr. But Rob Font, he's a boxer, got good striking, and that's what he'll probably want to implement the most in this fight against Raul Rosa Jr., who probably will more likely want to take the fight to the ground. But Rob Font kind of mentioned that we feel like there's a little bit of gatekeeper-ishness to this, and maybe that's because he's only 2-3 in his last 5 fights, and he's lost his last fight to David Martinez. And then he's had 31 matches with 22 wins and 9 losses. In the 22 wins, he's had 9 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission, and nine wins by decision. In the 9 losses, he's never been knocked out, so he's shown that he's got a great chin, and he's only been submitted 1 time, so that kind of that kind of puts a little bit of a kibosh on what I'm wanting to pick here. And then he's eight lost eight by decision. But he has lost once by submission in his career. It's probably a long time ago. Let's see. Yeah, it was back Pedro Munez back in a fight night, October 28th, 2017. So, I mean, almost 10 years ago, grinding up on it. So Rob Font, how old is he real quick? Because Raul Rosa Jr. is 21. So Rob Font, 38 years old. So we're having some old timers kind of to start this card, and or just guys that are up in their late 30s, facing just a kid in Raul Rosa Jr. Chawiwi. Some have maybe heard the catchphrase, but he is just a killer on the ground. Just a great ground game, first degree Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and like that's where he wants to take the fight. I definitely could see where he could be in trouble if Rob Font is able to keep the fight on the ground, but I could see the fight coming to an end possibly pretty quickly if Raul Rosso Jr. is able to get Rob Font on the ground, and he is Raul Rosso Jr., the prodigy, Brazilian jiu-jitsu prodigy. I think he's actually from Mexico, but the style that he uses, and he's only 21, and he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, and he's on a 4-fight winning streak with a couple stoppages mixed in there. TKO punches stoppage over Terrence Mitchell back in 2023, and then even a submission rear naked choke over Ricky Turris. So, and that was in 2024. But that was his first ever loss, was the one to Christian Rodriguez. But maybe that set him straight, set him kind of even said that himself. Maybe it helped him mature a little bit. But since then, he's been on a 4-fight winning streak. So, it's definitely a big step up in competition with fighting a veteran and a guy in the top 15 in Rob Font. But in his 12 matches, he's had 11 wins with just one loss. In the 11 wins, he's had 2 wins by knockout, 6 wins by submission, and 2 wins and three wins by decision. And then the one loss, never knocked out, never submitted, and then just the one decision loss to Christian Rodriguez. But I feel as if, and we mentioned it already, I feel as if this is a fight that's set up to kind of propel Raul Rosa Jr. But I could also see this fight being a tough fight for him, and it is a big step up in competition, and it could be make for a long day, or maybe even a short day or short fight if Raul Rosa Jr. isn't able to get Rob Font down, because Rob Font definitely has the better stand up, the better striking, and the better boxing, and shown that he's got a granite chin. So really, the only way probably is to try to drag this fight to the ground and get some ground and pound, maybe try to soften Rob Font up to the point where he can maybe get a submission. But history shows with Rob Font is that he's tough as nails and doesn't like to get stopped. But in this bantamweight bout between Rob Font versus Raul Rosa Jr., I'm still going with Raul Rosa Jr. To win this fight, even though I feel as if it'll say a lot. We'll know a lot more about Raul Rosa Jr. after this fight if he's able to beat Rob Font, and I think he's actually gonna be able to submit Rob Font for the second time in his career. So expect probably a choke or some type of arm lock would be my guess, and maybe see that this fight goes. Maybe it takes a while for him to soften Rob Font up, because he is tough. So maybe a submission in the late second or in the third round. All right. So now then, on to the the co-main event of of UFC 326. We have a middleweight bout between Caio Borralho versus Renner de Ritter. So Caio Borralho has already mentioned when talking about Renner de Ritter and talking to him in regards to like he knows that he's going to take him down. He expects Renner de Ritter to take him down. So I'm guessing that means that he would prefer the fight to stand. But I mean he's part of the fight nerds and he has a very well-rounded game as well. And he was on a pretty long winning streak there for a while. Yeah, so he was on a 16 fight winning streak and a 9 fight winning streak in just the UFC before his last fight, where he lost to Nasruddin Imavov by decision. So that was the kind of uh, definitely a big moment in Caio Borralho's career there, where he lost that because, like I said, he mentioned that it seems like he's probably would prefer this fight to strike, but also with the comments that he made during the press conference, definitely doesn't seem as if he's afraid if it does go to the ground. Man, he had a ruthless, a savage comment towards Renner de Ritter. And uh, because he was wanting to fight, so he knows that he's fighting Renner de Ritter, and he said he wants to fight him, and he wants to find out if he's still Ritter or if he's actually is the quitter. Man, talk about shots fired at Renner de Ritter on that one by from Caio Borralho. Uh, I guess trying to bring up his recent Renner de Ritter's recent loss to Brendan Allen, where he just got dog walked and just dragged and just ground and pound until his corner stopped the fight. And I don't know, it feels like Renner Ritter's gotten some bit of a bad rap after that, as if people are calling him a quitter, or if that he's the one that threw in the towel. But just like that, when after fighters lose and look terrible and one of the few losses they ever have, they always have to bring up an excuse. And his was that he had like a low red blood cell count or something like that. So he was sick, I guess. But yeah, I thought that was a savage shot from Caio there with the whole is he still a runner? Is he a quitter? But anyways, but we mentioned Caio Borralho being on a long winning streak until his most recent fight. So he's 4-1 in his last 5 fights and on just the one fight losing streak. So obviously he wants to get on track and talk about a good name to try to do it against. And he's had 25 matches with 17 wins and just 2 losses. In the 17 wins, he's had 5 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission, and 8 wins by decision. So he's got a well-rounded skill. Like we mentioned that he's kind of calling Renner de Ritter out on in regards to like, oh, I know you're going to shoot, you're not going to stand. So that makes me believe that Kyle would prefer the fight striking to standing and striking. But I mean, his record shows that he can win the fight anyway, and he's tough and got a good chin because he can go the distance as well. And then in his 2 losses, I mean, he's never been knocked out, never been submitted, so got good submission defense, which that may come in handy against Renner. May really need that possibly in this fight. And then in the two losses, as just 2 losses by decision, and then the 1 no contest. And then Renner de Ritter, known as to be a great ground game, a wrestler, and got like I said, feels as if he's gotten a lot of flack since his last fight and his loss to Brendan Allen, because it felt like before that, it felt like he was one fight away, one more win away from fighting for the belt, you know, at uh, at at middleweight for the middleweight belt, because he was on a 5 fight winning streak. So technically he's 4-1 in his last 5 fights, but he was on a 5 fight winning streak, and he was beating guys like Gerald Meerschaert, Kevin Holland, Bo Nichols, uh, Robert Whitaker, and he was like uh, getting some stoppages and knockouts over guys like Gerald Meerschaert and Kevin Holland, and just uh, absolutely owned and sunned Bo Nichols in their fight, where it felt like there was a lot of momentum behind Bo Nichols. Felt like if he just had one or two more good wins or impressive wins or wins over ranked opponents, that maybe he was going to be in line. And he just absolutely like sent Bo Nichols to the back of the line. But hard to say. Hard to say. I'm kind of like Kyle in regards to, like, I want to see if he's still the Ritter, if he's the quitter, because he did look just absolutely terrible against Brendan Allen after looking so great against guys like Kevin Holland, Bo Nichols, Robert Whitaker. That just as much name recognition and as much as good of a as a resume that you would need to just knocking at the door for a title shot, and then just gets absolutely dominated and just embarrassed and just killed to the point that his corner was concerned for his well-being, had to throw in the towel, didn't want to see a fifth round of him taking any more ground and pound, which thankfully they did. But in his 24 matches, he's had 21 wins and 3 losses. In the 21 wins, he's had 5 wins by knockout, 13 wins by submission. So that's really impressive. That's obviously, Kyle, that's where Renner de Ritter wants to go, and he will shoot on him. You're crazy to think that he won't try to shoot on him. And then has 3 losses or 3 wins by decision. And then this is kind of interesting, to see that he's only has 3 losses, but in all of his 3 losses, he's been knocked out. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on. And they were all uh, back in prime, and they were against and Tully Malakine knocked him out twice. And also interesting in one of those, the second fight against Alatoli was a retirement as well. So I'm interested. I'm hadn't done a full research on that, but that sounds as if his corner threw in the towel for him in that fight, where he got TKO'd retirement at the 116 mark of the third round. But that was back March 1st, 2024. So, I mean, that wasn't that long ago, but still, that's something interesting to see about Renner de Ritter in regards to how his fight resume has been. But regardless of that, I want to see Renner de Ritter get back to Ritter. So I want to see him get back to Ritter. And so in this middleweight bout between Caio Borrello versus Renner de Ritter, this middleweight bout, I'm going with Renner de Ritter. I don't think he's gonna get be quite as good as he was when he was getting all the stoppages a couple years back, and some of his more recent fights. But I expect him to get back into his game. It was wild seeing him getting dominated at his own game by Brendan Allen in his most recent fight. So expect him to do exactly what Caio Borrello is expecting him to do, is to take him down and control most of the fight and get most of the points that way, and cause the most damage, and win that fight by decision. So in the middleweight bout between Caio Borrello versus Renner de Ritter, I got Renner de Ritter, and I got him winning this by decision. All right, now then, on to the main event. Excuse me, the main event of UFC 326. Holloway versus Oliveira 2. We have a title bout, lightweight title bout for the BMF championship. So Max Holloway, the BMF title holder, versus the challenger, Charles Oliveira. And man, these are just like I mentioned a little bit earlier on in the podcast, how some of this fight feels like it's maybe lacking a little bit in regards to some name recognition. But I mean, you couldn't ask for more name recognition, like future UFC Hall of Famers in regards to Max Holloway and Charles Oliveira, and just a great matchup between these two fighters. Like, yeah, Max Holloway may be the more crisper and skilled striker, but Charles Oliveira maybe has the more knockout power and better ground game. Not saying Max Holloway doesn't have a ground game, but Charles Oliveira has had tons of stoppages on the ground game, which a good bit of them have been started when he's rocked his opponent standing on the feet. But this is a great fight. You know, only thing that could make this fight better, and it would probably feel like it would help the card. To me, it feels like it would help the card. Would be as if this was just for the lightweight championship bout, which if Max Holloway wins this fight, maybe even if he loses, I could see Max Holloway fighting for the lightweight title against Justin Gaethje, who he won the BMF championship or defended it against with the whole point down last 10 seconds after the clappers going off in that iconic fight. So I wouldn't see why he wouldn't be right in line for a lightweight title shot, whether he wins or loses this fight. But Max Holloway, the Hawaiian, has a great style, and he's a great striker predominantly, but also has that great ground game as well. And he's not really a fighter that's like, he doesn't have like really the one punch knockout capability, but he overwhelms his opponents with combinations and just constant coming forward until his opponent just basically melts in front of him. And he's been hot, and his kind of feels like a little bit of a career resurgence after the 3 losses to Alexander Volkanovski, starting that whole trilogy going all the way back to 2019. But it seems like since he's kind of bucked that, he's been pretty hot, other than I guess times when he faces a champion. So in his last 5 fights, he is 4-1, and then that's the one would be the TKO punches lost to Ilia Topuria for the featherweight championship at UFC 308 October 26, 2024, and that was at the 134 mark of the 3rd round. But other than that, he's been beating pretty much everyone. Arnold Allen, Jung Chang Sung, KO punch. Justin Gaethje, the iconic, point down for the, I guess that's when he won the BMF title was then. And then I guess he's wanting to defend it now. And then so the fight against Justin Gaethje is when he won the BMF title, fighting at lightweight, and then he defended it. He was the first BMF title holder to ever defend the belt against Dustin Poirier in his 1-fight winning streak that he's on, which was at UFC 318 back July 19th, 2025, and that went all 5 rounds, and pretty impressive win there by Max Holloway. But Max Holloway's still just, we mentioned there's some older fighters on this card, but I mean, Max Holloway's still just 34 years old, and he's had 35 fights with 26 wins and 8 losses. In the 26 wins, he has 12 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission, 13 wins by decision. And in the 8 losses, he has 1 loss by knockout and 1 win by submission, and one loss by submission, and then 6 losses by decision. So, it's pretty clear he's trying to either keep the fight standing and trying to get the knockout, or trying to definitely has a good chin to be able to go to the distance and point strike people and win fights on decisions like that. And before I get too far ahead of myself, uh, here talking about Charles Oliveira versus Max Holloway. These two have fought before, just kind of like uh, Gregory Rodriguez and Bruno Ferreira. Max Holloway and Charles Oliveira have fought, but it was even farther back in the day than Rodriguez and Ferreira. It was back in 2015. Like, geez, like more than a decade ago. Lost to yeah, one. Max Holloway won uh, a fight over Charles Oliveira, but it was due to an injury, neck, neck, yeah, TKO neck injury, and that happened like on a takedown, like scramble between the two of them, and that was all the way back at a fight night. You had Charles Oliveira versus Max Holloway at a fight night back on August 23rd, 2015, and that was at the 139 mark of the first round in Saskatchewan, Canada. That's just crazy with all the statistics and news and notes tabs to kind of stick to that fight and to see where those fighters are now is pretty crazy. And it's crazy that they never fought again over like that more than a dozen years, a dozen UFC seasons. They never met again, never ran into each other again for that time period. But hey, we're getting it now. We're getting it now, and kind of like Michael Johnson uh, was talking about earlier. If nothing else, with Charles Oliveira, I'm just a fan of Charles Oliveira. You know, they've been trying to sell this narrative here recently that he was like a quitter and then has somehow changed his name, has changed his name in regards to people thinking he was a quitter. But for some reason, I don't know. Maybe I've checked out or my memory's not good. But I don't ever really remember people in previous fights leading up to this one, people calling Charles Oliveira a quitter. The only thing I remember is that he's had some issues making weight in some fights, and then in some of those fights where he didn't make weight, so his opponent is able to fight for the belt, then I can kind of see where he might not have quite as uh, great of motivation in those fights, and to leave it quite all out on the line because I mean the title's not uh, up for grabs, but he is 3-2 in his five five last five fights, and he had uh, and is on a one fight winning streak over Mateus Gamrot with the face crank, and that extended his record for most finishes at 21 and most submission victories at 17 over the fight at Gamrot. And then just like everyone that's been in either the lightweight or the featherweight division, been his his loss before that win was just a KO punches by Ilia Topuria, who's just a freak. So that's no big surprise there. But he's 3-2 in his last five fights, and he has had 48 fights in his career. And we mentioned that Max is 34, but still, even with almost 50 fights, Charles Oliveira is only 36 years old, but he's had the 48 fights with 37 wins and and 10 10 and just 11 losses and then one no contest. In the 36 wins, he has 10 wins by knockout. So I mean, he can knock you out just like Max Holloway. Maybe has maybe a little bit better one strike combination, maybe not quite as crisp and not quite as good in the striking and flurries and combinations, but not far from it. But would say that he's uh, leaps and bounds better in regards to the submission game. Because what Max Holloway just had two, Charles Oliveira has 22 in his career, 22 submission victories in his career, and then just four wins by decision. And then in 11 losses, he's had five losses by knockout, four losses by submission, and then two two losses by decision, then just the one no contest. So that's kind of like RoboCop Rodriguez earlier, just in regards to not a lot of his fights go to decision, whether he's winning them or losing them. It's usually some type of stoppage, whether he's the one getting stopped or he's the one getting stopped, and not just predominantly by knockout with Rodriguez, whether he's getting knocked out or he's getting the knockout. And he's either getting a lot of submissions are mixed in there with Charles Oliveira, which I think a lot of those submissions probably get kind of set off and started off due to the striking, and then while fighters scrambling to get their wits about them end up getting caught in some type of arm lock or get caught in a choke by Charles Oliveira. So in this fight, so we mentioned just kind of like Michael Johnson and maybe even Gregory RoboCop Rodriguez earlier. It feels like these are kind of like coin flip type of fights, and you got fighters that are very similar and very similar records, and even kind of similar to the extent in styles that, man, it just feels kind of like a coin flip type of fights that the only way I can kind of divide it and pick is by kind of going to who I've always kind of been more of a fan of, and it doesn't mean I any disrespect, or I don't think Max Holloway is any good, or I think Drew Dober is any good, or Brandon Ferreira is just more of a fan, more of a longtime fan with some of these guys like Charles Oliveira and Michael Robinson, who've been fighting in the UFC for 10 plus years, like I said, 15 years. So in this lightweight bout between Max Holloway, the BMF champion, versus Charles Oliveira, the challenger, I'm going with Charles Oliveira to win this fight. And I don't think it's going to be an easy fight. I don't think he's going to go in there and just dominate Max Holloway in the standing and knock him out like Ilia Topuria, because Ilia Topuria, he's just a freak. He's just on another level when it comes to his knockout power at these smaller weight classes, and just the boxing and striking that he's shown moving from weight class to weight class. I don't think that's going to happen, and it doesn't happen very often with Max Holloway. But I think Charles Oliveira is going to be able to get in enough of his shots in the striking to where that doesn't just look as if he's just overwhelmed by Max Holloway's striking game. And then obviously I think he has just a clear and obvious advantage on the ground, to where maybe not to the point where he's going to catch Max Holloway in any type of submission, but I think he'll be, if nothing else, be able to keep top control and cause more damage on the ground than Max Holloway. So his time of control should be better. So in this lightweight bout between Max Holloway, the BMF champion, versus Charles Oliveira, the challenger, I'm going with Charles Oliveira. And like we just said, I don't think he's not going to knock Max Holloway out, or he's not going to submit him or anything. But I think he'll do enough standing, and obviously I think he'll be a clear cut winner and obvious the favorite on the ground to win a decision for Charles Oliveira. And it seems like recently the whole you got to beat the champ to be the champ, that doesn't seem to be really an issue here in some previous and recent title fights. And I wonder if does that even apply to the BMF title. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But so it could be a decision, but it could be, go for Charles Oliveira to win it still, but it could be even a split decision. So hopefully make for the fight of the night, whether there's a stoppage or not. But anyways, I think that's about all I have for you this evening. So this is UFC 326, Max Holloway versus Oliveira 2, and we'll be tuned in definitely for the standard prelims and obviously for all of the main event, and we'll be able to go over the picks and the results post fight. But anyways, it's nice to be back. I felt as if there was something missing in my life, and just if nothing else, for me to get out and spew all the nonsense and stuff that I've accumulated for you guys. But I'm glad you guys like it, and Hopefully we'll be a little more active here. Hopefully there won't be a month break in between fights or in between any type of Saints news. But so I'm excited for UFC 326, and it's the rematch between these two. But I'm also love getting in kind of the 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 mode, the rhythm of these fights starting an hour early now. These premium live events starting at 8 o'clock. I'm a huge fan of that. I'm too old to stay up till midnight, 1 o'clock for a bummer, a dud fight. But I don't think we'll have to deal with that with Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira for the BMF title. But anyways, I think that's about all I have for you. So can I get a check, please?